Have you ever been faced with a choice where no matter what you do, the outcome feels wrong? Where the very act of choosing seems to condemn you? This isn't just a thought experiment for philosophers in dusty libraries. It's the quiet, haunting background of our everyday lives, the moral static we often try to tune out. Today we're going to turn that static up. We're going to dive into a puzzle. A puzzle that has sparked arguments in classrooms, courtrooms, and late-night conversations for decades. It begins with a scenario. A simple one, but it has a sharp edge. Imagine this. You are standing at a switch. Down a railway track, a massive runaway freight train is barreling towards 5 people who are tied to the tracks. They can't move. You are standing next to a lever. If you pull this lever, you will divert the train onto a side track. But on that side track, there is one person tied down. You have 2 choices, and only 2. Do nothing, and the train will kill the 5. Or pull the lever, actively divert the train, and it will kill the 1. What is the right thing to do? Let's just take a quick, honest poll with ourselves. How many of you, instinctively, feel that pulling the lever is the right choice? That it's a tragic necessity, but you save more lives. Now, how many of you feel a deep hesitation? That actively causing someone's death feels fundamentally different, even if it saves more people? Most people, when posed with this, choose to pull the lever. The reasoning seems clear. It's a numbers game. 5 lives are worth more than 1. It's the best outcome in a terrible situation. But let's take a step back. Let's test that very principle, that it's better to sacrifice one to save many. Let's take that same runaway train, those same 5 workers, but this time you are not standing at a switch. You are standing on a footbridge overlooking the tracks, and next to you, leaning over the railing, is a very large man. He's heavy enough that if you were to give him a small push, he would fall onto the tracks. His body would stop the train, saving the 5. He would, of course, die. Now, how many of you would push the large man off the bridge? Let's be honest. A show of hands? Very few. Most of us recoil at the idea. But wait a minute. The principle seemed so clear a moment ago. Better to save 5 lives even if it means one has to die. What happened? The numbers are the same. 1 life versus 5. So what changed in the first case? The death of the 1 felt like a byproduct of a decision. In the second, it feels like an act of violence. In the first, you were a decision maker. In the second, you would be a killer. This simple shift reveals a fundamental tension within us. Are we guided by the consequences of our actions, the final tally of lives saved? Or are we guided by deeper, more absolute rules? The rule that says, "Thou shalt not kill," which seems to apply differently in these 2 scenarios. Now, let's move from hypothetical trains to a real-life story. A story that isn't in a philosophy book, but in the law courts of 19th century England. It's the case of the shipwrecked sailors. 4 men are stranded in a lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. They have almost no food, no water. Days turn into a week, then 2 weeks. One of them, a young cabin boy of 17, is sick. He drank seawater and is fading fast. The other 3 men, desperate and starving, face an unthinkable choice. One of them suggests a lottery. Let chance decide who will be sacrificed so the others can live. But the others hesitate. No lottery is drawn. Then, the captain and the first mate. They decide. They decide that the boy, who has no family, who is already near death, should be killed. They don't ask for his consent. They kill him with a knife, and for the next 4 days, they survive on his flesh and blood. They are eventually rescued, and back in England, they are put on trial for murder. Now, put yourself in the jury box. What is your verdict? Guilty of murder or not guilty? Given the dire necessity, many of us might feel a pull toward a not guilty verdict. The circumstances were extreme. It was survival. But then a question emerges. What if they had held the lottery? What if the boy had agreed? Would that have changed the moral calculus for you? For many it does. The element of consent, the idea of a fair procedure, seems to matter immensely. It's not just the outcome, but the process that leads to it. And what if the boy had not only agreed, but offered himself as a sacrifice? Would that have made it right? Some would say yes, because his consent transforms the act. It's no longer murder, it's a sacrifice. But others would still disagree. They would say that even with consent, taking an innocent life is fundamentally wrong. That there are certain lines we do not cross no matter the circumstance. That the act itself, the intentional killing, is categorically wrong. It doesn't matter if it's for the good of the many. It doesn't matter if the person agrees. Murder is murder. So here we are, at a crossroads. We have three distinct ideas battling within us. First, the idea that morality is about results. It's about maximizing the good, minimizing the suffering. For the 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham, this was the core of his philosophy, which he called utilitarianism. The goal, he said, is the greatest good for the greatest number. Pain and pleasure are our sovereign masters, and we should build our morality and our laws on that simple fact. In the lifeboat, this would mean adding up the happiness of the 3 families saved versus the 1 orphan lost. The numbers and the consequences seem to point one way. Then there is the second idea. The idea that morality isn't just about the outcome, but about the nature of the act itself. This is a categorical way of thinking. It argues that there are certain duties, certain rights, that are absolute and cannot be violated even for a greater good. The German philosopher Immanuel, Kant, who we'll explore further, built his entire moral philosophy on this idea. For him, you cannot use a person as a means to an end, even a life-saving end. To kill the cabin boy, even to save 3, is to treat him as a mere object, a tool for your survival. And that, Kant would argue, is the ultimate moral crime. And finally, the third idea. The idea of consent and fair process. Many of us felt that if the sailors had agreed on a lottery, it would have made the sacrifice more acceptable. This points to a moral intuition that goes beyond pure consequences. It's about fairness. It's about everyone having an equal chance. It suggests that the moral legitimacy of an act sometimes comes not from its outcome, nor from an absolute rule, but from the procedure by which it was reached. If everyone agrees to the rules, even a tragic outcome can be seen as just. These 3 threads, consequences, categorical rules, and consent, are the threads that weave the fabric of our moral lives. They are the arguments we have with ourselves in the quiet moments, and the arguments we have with others in our public debates. So, as we go forward, we're going to unravel these threads. We're going to read the philosophers who gave them their most powerful expression. We're going to test their ideas, not just with hypothetical trains and shipwrecks, but with the pressing issues of our own time. Equality, free speech, the limits of the law, the rights of the individual versus the good of the community. This isn't just an academic exercise. It's an exploration of who you are. Because the questions we've begun with today, when is it right to sacrifice one? For the many, what do we owe to each other? Are not abstract puzzles. They are the questions you will live. They are the choices you will face in big moments and small. And the story of moral philosophy is ultimately a story about you. It can be an unsettling story. It can make the familiar feel strange. It can challenge the beliefs you hold most dear. The great German philosopher Immanuel Kant once wrote that skepticism is a resting place for human reason, but it is no place for permanent settlement. To simply throw up our hands and say it's all relative is to evade the very restlessness that makes us human. The aim of this journey, then, is not to provide easy answers. It is to awaken that restlessness, to sharpen your own thinking, to see where your own principles, tested and challenged, might lead. Because the luxury of avoiding these questions is a luxury we cannot afford. Thank you. If this video got you thinking, if it stirred that restlessness of reason we talked about, then don't let the conversation end here. Subscribe to Silence Ascent and hit that bell icon so you never miss the next time we dive deep into these questions. Join me and let's keep exploring together. Subscribe now.